Testing, 1, 2. Okay. Hi, this is Mike Balaban. Welcome to another episode of BAMMER Tales Talks. Today, I'd like to focus on my involvement with nonprofits. One of the first affairs I had in New York City, the whole notion of age gaps in dating, long-distance dating, and long-distance relationships. The story of my upbringing, who we're attracted to, the rite of passage that usually involves recreational drugs, the age-old practice of masturbation. You know, it's very hard when you're 20, 25, and 30 and you're first experiencing dating and emotions and affection and love to recognize whether an incipient relationship is real and if you both are on the same page, or if it's simply an affair or a fling with one side maybe caring more than the other. I was working out after work every day at the YMCA on the Upper West Side. One night I walked in and I saw this gorgeously all-American handsome boy next door type about my age, and I was instantaneously smitten. I noticed a really handsome, buff, blonde, probably in his late 20s, maybe 30 years old, on a towel by himself, not too far away, and I was just struck by his beauty. And you know when you get that simultaneous feeling in your heart and in your groin where you just have to meet someone? Well, that's what happened to me. There was a charisma in him that was obvious, and it drew me towards him. And he had these freckles and this light brown hair and this cute smile, and I just wanted to be his best friend. I was just drawn to him. So I kept my nights available just so Bill and I could get together, and made no plans with anybody else, which today, there's no way in hell I would do that. I'd tell somebody to hit the road if they weren't willing to make any commitment. So it lasted a year and a half, and the whole time I was resisting it. It's just because he just wasn't the guy I wanted to be with. But it went on and on. It also wasn't exclusive. He didn't insist that it be. Nobody at that time was exclusive for the most part. So I was able to do other things with other men if I wanted. And in fact, that's what actually led to the end of the relationship with this guy. I gave Ken the news, and it was disappointing for both of us, but he kind of immediately shut down emotionally. Knowing that I was not going to be available any longer, even though I had 2 months to go, he started pulling away gradually. I just couldn't do it. So I had to approach Jake, and one night just said, Jake, I have to tell you, I've met somebody else, and he's stolen my heart, and I've enjoyed our time together immensely, but I'm going to have to end it. And it hurt him, but he was remarkably mature and rebounded pretty well. And I needed and wanted to be with Jeff, my long-distance partner at that moment, to hold him, to have him hold me when I was in such pain and he wasn't there. And I would moan at night saying, when are we going to get together? And he would say, Mike, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. And he had a lot of karmic faith. I didn't. But in the end, he was right. He was able to get a job and move to New York, and we were together. We live in an era where for several decades, we've had pretty much unlimited access to imagery of whatever type we'd like. I mean, for example, right now you can go on Twitter and see just about anything sexual you want without any limitations. These days, a lot of them are bots and trolls and a preponderance of cybercurrency, cryptocurrency traders. I don't know what they think I'm going to do. Do they expect that I'm going to give all my saved net worth and ask them to trade it for me? I really don't get it, but there are a lot of people who will, within a couple of minutes of beginning to chat, they'll start talking to me about, are you familiar with cryptocurrency? I'm like, yes, I'm familiar with it. I worked on Wall Street for 20 years. I am quite knowledgeable about finance, and I don't really need anybody to help me with that. Thank you very much. And they quickly lose interest. Having come through the trial by fire we did as an LGBTQIA community from the 50s until the 2000s, delivering our civil rights as we had sought to do. Now, where do we stand and where do we go from here? And in particular, how do we contend with the rising opposition to LGBT civil rights in the U.S. and in other places around the world? Today, There are people in places like the state of Florida where they're banning books from high school libraries, trying to prevent kids from knowing about LGBTQ people under the theory that supposedly we're grooming them and trying to turn them into other queers. That's not the case. They want to control their kids' minds so they ultimately can force us back in the closet. Let's say you are a 30-year-old gay man who's married your boyfriend a couple of years ago and have had a couple of kids through surrogacy or adoption, and you've moved to the suburbs, really emulating what straights have done for generations. And while in the suburb, you join the local country club. And on your first visit to the country club after becoming members, your husband is parking the car and you are in the lobby with your two kids. And another member comes up, or a group of members, they, oh, what adorable kids. Welcome to the club. Where's your wife? And you will have to publicly go out on a limb and say, I'm sorry, I don't have a wife. My husband is parking the car.
Ditch your complacency. You've never lived in an era when we didn't have some or all of the civil rights we do today. I have. Believe me, it was horrible. And you probably don't believe deep in your gut that we'll ever return to those dark ages. They can't really take those away, can they? Well, yes, they can. Look at what the Supreme Court and the religious right just did to women's right to have an abortion. Gone. Overnight. Why? Because people didn't take it seriously, mobilize, activate, and fight.
And a lot of these guys are gay baiting. They're straight people, straight men who know there's a largely appreciative gay audience, and they're putting up their content in a way that appeals to us and being allowed to keep it up because they're ostensibly straight. When openly gay people like myself with clearly gay sites with educational content are finding anything that we put that is remotely close to that being removed, I began to feel queasy. And I'd been told by the seller of the mushrooms that if you have a bad experience, make sure you have a banana handy because the potassium kind of offsets the impact of the mushrooms, and also turn on the lights. Light can be an antidote. So sure enough, I began to experience a bad trip. And I ate the banana and I turned on the lights and it didn't make me feel any better. And there were drinks and some food and lots of hunks. And they were in the pool, taking up every inch of space until the water got so deep that you couldn't stand in it. And you'll see from the photos that I share here today that there's just more beef packed in that density than almost imaginable, up on the porch, around the edge of the pool, in the pool. And no one had explained to me that it took quite a while before you reached that magical climax that I heard so much about. So I would, slap my erect penis against my groin 5 or 10 times. It felt pleasurable, but nothing happened. So I gave up. Now, just to level set the understanding, I did not have anything psychedelic. For me, it was an experience of mood changes and mental imagery, thinking about all the things in my life. But for him, he saw curtains waving and colors dripping and all of the stuff that you often hear about on acid. And I tried to explain, I'm here to learn and observe and hopefully become more sensitive and be able to impart some of it back to my audience on my Instagram so they too can learn and become more sensitive. Because the more we know and understand each other, the more likely we are to get along. As a result of that, by the end of the weekend, I felt really comfortable. I was so glad that I'd gone. It was a learning curve for sure, and I have a lot of things yet to learn. It's a challenge to overcome my subliminal and unconscious racism every day, and I'm still working on it. But, you only can do it if you start and you try, and that's what I'm doing. Hence, when older gay men who now are in shape, who've worked out, who are proud of themselves, who've made their way through life and been very accomplished in their careers and feel good about themselves, and we project an accomplishment that younger people envy. Like, we've made it through life and they don't know how they're going to do that, and they want to know how we did it. And there's some value in the idea that we might be mentors, we might be advisors, heck, we might be boyfriends. We ended up being together, he as my mentor and more often than not my boss, for most of the next 13 years at Lehman Brothers, until the firm eliminated my department and I lost the job entirely. So I hope when you're dating someone that you don't put a laundry list of what they have to fulfill in order to become an eligible contender for your attentions. I hope you are willing to look at the person itself. We always talk about look at the person, not the shell. But in reality, there's a combination of putting some basic requirements for what you need, which I think ought to be on some level you're attracted to them and they are honest and have good values and may have some intelligence to be able to deal with you. Other than that, everything else is fair game. That's my talk for today. I hope this resonates with you. I wonder if any of you have stories like this. I'd love to hear if any of you have had relationships cross border, cross language, cross race, and how it was for you. Please, subscribe if you haven't, and click the little bell that will send you a notification of when our next video will be released. We put them out every other week, and I'd love to have you as regular audience. Thanks a lot for listening. This has been another episode of BAMMER Tales. This is Mike Balaban. Thank you very much. Whether this person or I am a big dick gay man or a small dick gay man, or I'm a big old bottom or I'm a big old top, whatever the description is, it's none of their fucking business, if you'll forgive my French.